What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. I am amped up right now. The NFL just released the schedule for the new season. I got takeaways for the Chicago Bears, the Vikings with JJ McCarthy, the Falcons, the Jags, the Steelers. I laughed out loud when I saw the quarterback the Steelers are going to be going up against to open up this year. The power of the universe is just funny to me. And we'll touch on Shedeur Sanders as well later on in this episode. Hit that like button. Helps us grow. Helps us rank higher in the YouTube search algorithm. Subscribe. Turn on post notifications if you're new so you get alerted every time we drop new content. If you listen to podcasts, you can find us on Apple, Spotify. The links are down in the description below. Give us a 5-star review if you enjoy, and let's dive into it. I am very high on the Chicago Bears going into this season. Caleb Williams, I could see him winning MVP this year. With the hiring of Ben Johnson, he's going to be able to elevate Caleb Williams to his full potential in his sophomore year. His rookie season was pretty good, but it could have been a lot better. He had inconsistencies with his accuracy, especially when he was trying to throw the ball downfield. And the offensive line didn't do him too many favors. He was getting sacked like 6-7 times a game. Some of that was on him for holding the ball too long, trying to make a play, but a lot of it was just the offensive line getting blown up as soon as the ball got snapped. And the first thing that Ben Johnson did when he first took this head coaching job in Chicago was ramp up and beef up the offensive line for Caleb Williams. And now with the amount of riches that Caleb Williams is throwing the ball to, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, you drafted Luther Burden and Colson Loveland, this should easily be one of the best offenses in the NFL this year with all of the creativity that Ben Johnson has in his offensive play calling. Him inheriting a quarterback with this kind of talent that Caleb Williams possesses should easily make the Bears the most improved team in the National Football League this year. We always see a team go from worst to first in their division, and I expect for the Bears to be that team. Yes, the NFC North is tough, but I feel they'll win 12 games. They'll win this division. I got them sweeping the Minnesota Vikings. I have them splitting with the Detroit Lions and Green Bay. Chicago not just has a good offense, but their defense is really good also. They had a top 10 defense last year. You got Dennis Allen being your defensive coordinator now. He's not a good head coach, but he's a really good D coordinator. Some guys don't have what it takes to be a head coach. They just can't handle the amount of responsibilities. But when you have somebody that is as good as what Dennis Allen is calling plays, it's pretty safe to assume that Chicago's defense is going to be one of the better in the NFL. And they have an overall complete team this year, which is something that they didn't have last year where, yeah, you had a bunch of good receivers, but the game of football is won and lost on the line of scrimmage. And like we just saw in the Super Bowl a few months ago when the Eagles dominated Kansas City, they mainly dominated that game because they were just harassing Patrick Mahomes all throughout that night. And Chicago is good on both lines of scrimmage, offense and defense. So that gives them a huge advantage over the majority of teams that they have on their schedule. And every team in this division has a difficult schedule. And I feel like strength of schedule is a tad bit overrated because some teams that were playoff teams last year may not make it to the playoffs this season, whether it be injuries or just completely underperforming. But when I think of some of the best teams in the NFC from just looking at their roster on paper, the Chicago Bears are in that conversation for me. They had a really good offseason this year, and I would be really surprised if we don't see this team get into the playoffs year one under Ben Johnson. There's a lot of pressure on him. When you get mentioned in the same breath as Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay being the offensive genius, we saw all of the crazy calls that he was dialing up in Detroit. It's only right for the expectations to be sky high for you. We've seen Jim Harbaugh in his first season with the Chargers get them to the playoffs, even though on paper they didn't look like a playoff team. The Bears already were a playoff squad last year. At least that's what the expectations were. And you would have thought that the floor for them was 9 games. But with how bad the coaching was, with the mishandling of the clock and that Thanksgiving loss, the Hail Mary against the Washington Commanders, it took away 2-3 extra wins that probably could have changed how we all viewed the 2024 season for the Bears organization. But this year, though, there is a lot to be optimistic about when it comes to the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams has an improved offensive line. He's throwing to a lot of weapons. He's going to have a great defense with Dennis Allen calling the plays. I got the Bears going 12-5 this year. JJ McCarthy, you talk about trial by fire. The Minnesota Vikings have the toughest schedule in the NFL this year. And we're going to find out very quickly how good JJ McCarthy is, because he has to start the season going up against Chicago Bears, who have a really good defense. Then your next 3 games are pretty winnable. You're playing the Falcons, the Bengals, the Steelers, and then after that, you got the Browns before your bye. But after you come off that bye week, you play 6 playoff teams from that point on. You got Philly, the Chargers, the Lions, back-to-back road games. The Ravens are going to be in the forefront of the Super Bowl conversation. You would think that this is the year that Lamar finally gets his. Then you got to play Chicago again. Then you got another road trip to Lambeau Field, Seattle. They could be a playoff team this year. Washington made it to the playoffs last year with Jaden Daniels. That's going to be a really tough matchup for this Vikings squad. JJ McCarthy is going to make or break the Minnesota Vikings this year. When he was at Michigan, he wasn't asked to throw the football that much. He was just a really talented game manager. But with him playing for Kevin O'Connell, who has gotten the most out of pretty much every quarterback that he has had, I feel JJ McCarthy will be pretty decent. But being pretty good may not be enough for the Vikings to have anywhere close to the level of success that they had last season, and they may not even be good enough to get into the playoffs this year. The NFC North has 4 teams that are more than capable of being able to get to the postseason. And yes, the Vikings have improved in a lot of areas. The O-line looks a lot better. The defense was already really good last year, and you do nothing but add to that side of the ball. But in a division this tough, you're only going to go as far as what your quarterback is able to take you. And if JJ McCarthy doesn't play at a top 15 level in his first season, Minnesota probably ends up winning 7-8 games max, because this isn't a weak enough schedule for you to overcome not having at least average or above average quarterback play. And the expectations for JJ McCarthy, like they are for Caleb Williams, they're pretty high. You invested a top 10 pick into him. He got the sack for a year, although it kind of was against the terms that you might have wanted. He missed all of 2024 due to an injury that he suffered in the preseason. But him sitting for a year, being able to get more comfortable with this offense, the terminology, he should be able to be solid enough where the Vikings are competitive and what looks like to be the toughest division in the NFL once again. But it's just hard to see Minnesota just going so far this year with them essentially having a rookie quarterback, because that's what JJ McCarthy pretty much is. Yeah, he's in year 2, but last year was a redshirt year. And there's only so much that a young quarterback can learn sitting on the bench until he ends up getting thrown into the fire. And this is baptism by fire. With how difficult this schedule is, you are playing 6, maybe 8 to 9 teams that can make the playoffs this year. And quarterback play could be the difference in a lot of those games. So JJ McCarthy doesn't have a good year where he just hits the ground running in year 1. It's going to derail any hope that the Vikings have of making it to the playoffs. The Atlanta Falcons are a hard team to evaluate because on paper, you would think they would be a lock to make it to the playoffs. And looking at them last year, I thought they would have made it to the playoffs. You started 6-3, things were looking up for you. Kirk Cousins was balling out, but after that, Kirk Cousins just fell off the rails. He had more interceptions than he had touchdowns before he got benched. And then Michael Penix came in and gave you some hope, but ultimately you came up short of making it to the postseason. And going into this year, look, there's a lot of pressure on Raheem Morris. The only way the Falcons don't make it to the playoffs this year or win the NFC South is if Raheem Morris holds this team back with his bad clock management, his mishandling of late game situations. The schedule this year is very favorable for Atlanta. You only play 4 teams that made it to the playoffs last year, and you play 5 teams out of the division that most likely won't make it to the playoffs. And the expectations got to be playoff robust for both Raheem and Terry Fontenot. They're playing in 5 primetime games this year, the Falcons are. You got the Vikings on Sunday Night Football in week 2, Buffalo on Monday night. You got a Sunday night matchup against the San Francisco 49ers, the Bucks on Thursday night, and you play the Rams week 17. So with the amount of primetime spots that the Falcons have, maybe it's a sign of the NFL saying that they expect Atlanta to be a great team this year, and they definitely should. I would take them over the Panthers and definitely the Saints. When it comes to them and the Bucks, it's a little bit of a wash just because both Tampa and Atlanta are evenly matched when it comes to talent. And same thing about the coaching. Yes, Todd Bowles has won this division for the last couple of years consecutively, but he hasn't really done that much in the postseason. And I think that Todd Bowles is like an average to slightly above average coach, and he's been able to take advantage of the weakest division in the NFL. But if Raheem Morris can get out of his own way, not step on his toes, the Falcons should definitely be able to win the NFC South. Hell, they would have won it last year if it wasn't for Kirk Cousins throwing the season away. They swept the Buccaneers twice. And Todd Bowles, for as much success as he has had up to this point in Tampa Bay, they should be doing a lot more come playoff time with how well their general manager has drafted. That's why the door is wide open for the Falcons to claim this division. And with Michael Penix, look, he's the main reason why I believe in the Falcons this year. He made a lot of impressive throws downfield in tight windows. I was really impressed with how poised he looked in the end of that Washington Commanders game. Although they lost, you can't blame it on Michael Penix. He put them in position to win the game. He drove them downfield. He was able to tie it up. And if Raheem Morris would have had more awareness to call a damn timeout, it would have helped them be in more favorable field goal range for them to ultimately go ahead and win that game. So I think last year was a learning experience for Raheem Morris. Hopefully he'll be able to learn from those mishaps and he'll be a better coach after. Ultimately, the Falcons are only going to go as far as what Raheem Morris allows this team to go. And if he can get out of his own way, this is a playoff team The schedule is in their favor. The division is in their favor. You don't have any elite coaches. And even if you say the Buccaneers have the talent advantage over Atlanta, they definitely don't have the coaching advantage over Atlanta. We saw Raheem Morris mop the floor with Todd Bowles twice last year. And I'm not expecting for the Bucs to get swept by Atlanta this year, but I feel the stock is trending more upwards with Atlanta than it is for Tampa Bay. I just feel neutral about Tampa Bay. There's just something off about Todd Bowles. Anytime the Bucs go up against good teams, they normally don't end up coming out on the winning end of them that often. His defenses get exposed anytime they go up against an elite quarterback. So that's why I just feel like this is the year the Falcons can claim this division and make it to the playoffs. I laughed out loud when I saw the Steelers were going to open this season playing against the New York Jets and Justin Fields, the quarterback that they started off last season 4-2 with on the top of the NFC North, but then Mike Tomlin made the decision to go from Justin to Russell Wilson, and that got the Steelers pretty much in the same position that they've been in these last couple of years, winning season and the first round playoff exit. And Justin Fields, he recently explained why he chose the Jets over staying in Pittsburgh. He said that the handling of the quarterback situation weirded him out. He didn't really understand it. And with him going to the Jets, that's the best situation that he's ever been in up to this point. He has a really good offensive line. He has a good group of pass catchers to throw the football to, including Garrett Wilson. On top of that, he has a really good defense. So there's no excuses for Justin Fields not being able to have a breakout season. And him starting this year off against his former team was just really funny because Mike Tomlin, if he ends up getting exposed by Justin Fields and Justin Fields just goes off in this game, then it further shows how inept and blind Mike Tomlin and this organization are when it comes to evaluating the quarterback position, because the gap between what the Jets are giving Justin Fields and what the Steelers offered them wasn't really that big. The Steelers gave him a pretty favorable offer, but he just felt the Jets, the place that has been known for a very long time where quarterback careers go to die, gives him the best chance to have success. And look, the Steelers, we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with this team or not. They still keep saying that he is. But even if he does or doesn't play in this game, it's going to be really fascinating. For one, he hasn't had a lot of reps and OTAs, mini camp, so the timing, the chemistry probably won't be there. But if you got to go with Mason Rudolph or Will Howard, you could lose this game. Aaron Glenn is a really good defensive-minded coach. The Jets have a lot of talent on that side of the ball, which I feel was a reason why he took this job, which was a little bit of a shock to a good amount of people. I thought he was going to go to New Orleans, but the Jets got a really good front seven. And the Steelers' offensive line, as inconsistent as what the quarterback play was, the O-line wasn't that good neither, albeit you did have a lot of injuries on that offensive line, and with everybody fully healthy, that unit should be really good. But the Steelers are going to get tested in a lot of ways early in this week one game against Justin Fields and the New York Jets. And I like the New York Jets personally. Normally, new head coaches or first-year head coaches don't have a lot of success in week one. They actually have losing records to start the season. But this is a lot different because the Steelers, for as many years as they have gone without a losing season, you kind of got to feel like this year is when that streak finally gets snapped. And as easy as it is to say, oh, JT, Mike Tomlin can win with anybody, he's guaranteed to have a winning season, there's a first time for everything. And there's an old saying that goes, streaks are meant to be broken. And if the Steelers end up losing this game in week 1 to Justin Fields in New York, I feel like it's going to set the tone early for what's going to be in store for the Steelers this year, because their schedule, like always, is really tough. The division is really tough, but I really can't see Mike Tomlin pulling out another winning season if he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. And even if you do have Aaron at QB, there's still a lot of question marks about Aaron Rodgers. I feel he still has a little bit of gas left in the tank to play at a above average level for one last season. But with the Steelers getting rid of George Pickens, not retaining Najee Harris, you pretty much get the equivalent to Najee Harris and Caleb Johnson. I just don't know if the Steelers offense has enough around Aaron Rodgers to have success in his last season, which is safe to assume that probably will be his last season. He'll turn 42 years old at the tail end of this year. So I'm very interested in seeing how this Jets-Steelers week 1 game goes. You got the Justin Fields revenge tour. I can see Justin Fields breaking out. We don't know how good their offensive coordinator is going to be, but Aaron Glenn, it seems like he has a more modern approach. The offense, he's not as much as a deer in headlights when it comes to that side of the ball as what Mike Tomlin is, despite being a defensive-minded coach. And Justin Fields, when he's on, he's as good as any other quarterback in the league. He's one of the best runners of the ball that we've seen out of the quarterback position in NFL history. When Justin Fields runs that rock, he turns into a running back. Big, physical, he'll run you over, but he can make you miss with the elusiveness as well. So the New York Jets, man, I think they got a lot going for them going into this week 1 game against Pittsburgh. You already know who your starting quarterback is going to be. Pittsburgh right now, they're just kind of going with the flow of things. And I don't think that Aaron Rodgers can miss OTAs, a little bit of mini camp, and just all of a sudden come to Pittsburgh and just hit the ground running. If the Steelers do find a way to make it to the playoffs, it more so will be due to Aaron Rodgers playing well during the second half of the season, because you can't miss this much time, not get the chemistry down with your teammates at this part of the offseason, and just expect that Aaron's still going to be as good as what he was in his prime without, having a good amount of practice time with these receivers and this team. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets end up beating Pittsburgh in week 1. I feel like the Jaguars could win the AFC South this year. Hiring Liam Coen was a huge W for this organization. Everywhere he's been, he's produced really good offenses. When he was calling plays for Kentucky in 2021, he helped Will Levis have that breakout season. And ever since he left Kentucky, they haven't been the same since. In his lone year as the Buccaneers offensive coordinator, not just did Baker Mayfield have the most efficient season of his career, but the Buccaneers finally got their rushing attack going. And Liam Coen is the coach that Trevor Lawrence needed to get his career going back in the right direction. And it also helps that Trevor's going to be throwing to what should be one of the best receiving duos in the NFL with Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. The Jaguars, on paper, are not too far off in terms of talent from the Houston Texans. The Texans have major concerns at wide receiver. Outside of Nico Collins with the injury to Tank Dell, we really don't know who's going to step up in this wide receiver room for them. Their offensive line is still a question mark. I still don't feel like they've done enough to address that position fully. They put a few Band-Aids on the offensive line, but we don't really know if they're going to hold. Of course, the defense is going to be really good, but the Jaguars are probably going to split with Houston this year, and they sweep the rest of this division. The AFC South is in a really bad spot with how the quarterback situation is playing out with Indianapolis. You're choosing between Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones. it just feels like they're on the brink of implosion. Jacksonville should be able to mop the floor with them. Tennessee will be more respectable this year with Cam Ward at quarterback, but from a talent standpoint, the Jaguars are still way better than Tennessee. So other than losing to the Texans, I don't see them taking any more L's to any AFC South foes. And the first half of the schedule for Jacksonville is pretty difficult. So having this division be in the weak state that it is greatly going to benefit them. They start the season off playing Carolina. Then after that, there is no gimmies. You got the Bengals on the road, the Texans, the 49ers, the Chiefs on Monday Night Football, Seattle, the Rams in London, which is a de facto home game for the Jaguars, considering how much they play in London. And then after that bye, that's when the schedule starts to lighten up for the Jaguars. Back-to-back road trips against the Raiders and the Texans. Those are winnable. And then the Chargers are one of the last few playoff teams that you're going to have to face entering the final stretch of this season. You got the Cardinals, the Titans, the Colts, the Jets, the Broncos, the Tennessee Titans again. The Jaguars from week 12 to week 18, they should go 5-1 during that period. Outside of Denver, the Jaguars are better than the rest of those other teams that they're going to be matched up against. And Trevor Lawrence has shown the ability to play good football. It's not as if the Jaguars just blindly made him one of the highest paid quarterbacks for no reason. They paid him based off the promise that he showed in his second season when he led the Jaguars to the AFC South title. He led them to a comeback win in the playoffs against Justin Herbert and the Chargers, and they put up a good fight in the divisional round that year against Kansas City. And his last 2 years, he's been banged up. He hasn't been healthy. And even when he has been at 100%, he's just been incredibly inconsistent at times. When he gets hit too much, his mechanics just are all over the place. He gets loosey-goosey with the football. But Liam Coen can reel Trevor Lawrence in. If he was able to get a lot of efficiency out of Baker Mayfield and Will Levis when he was coaching them up at Kentucky, then I expect him to be able to do the same thing with Trevor Lawrence. The tools are there for Trevor Lawrence to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. The thing with him is just you need to see more consistency out of him, and that's what Liam Coen is going to get out of T-Law. T-Law was one of the main reasons why Liam Coen took this job in the first place. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Jaguars won the AFC South this year. I don't think the gap between them and the Texans is all that wide. Offensively, I feel the Jaguars have a leg up on the Houston Texans. But we'll see how this season plays out. But if the Jags actually do get to the playoffs, then Liam Coen, as a first-year head coach, he's going to be the runaway favorite to win Coach of the Year. Because the expectations for Jacksonville, in spite of the improvements that they made on both, not just offense, but the defense side of the ball, they should be a 9-win team. But the media, the odds makers are still not really that high on this ball club. But if Liam Coen gets Trevor Lawrence playing back at the level that he did in 2022, the Jags definitely could challenge Houston for this division. Despite Shedeur Sanders being a 5th-round pick, I do expect for the Browns to start him at some point during this season. The question just is when. Because their schedule is just as tough as anybody's. They got a top 3 schedule in terms of difficulty. You got the Bengals, the Ravens, the Packers, the Lions, the Vikings, the kickoff the season. Good Lord. And then before your bye week, you got the Dolphins and the Patriots, which are winnable games for the Browns. And then after that, Baltimore, Las Vegas. You should be 3-8 at that point. And once you go into that Week 13 game against the San Francisco 49ers, that's when I expect for the Browns to start Shedeur Sanders. And then after that date with the 49ers, do you know who the Browns are going to be playing in Week 14? The Tennessee Titans. In the NFL, knew exactly what they were doing when they scheduled this Week 14 matchup between the Cleveland Browns and the Tennessee Titans, because the schedule makers probably assume that will be the point of the season when the Browns throw Shedeur out there, because at that point, you're going to be playing for nothing, and you might as well see what you have in Shedeur Sanders. The owner was the guy who wanted him in Cleveland, which is why they took a second quarterback, although they drafted Dylan Gabriel 2 rounds early. And that's going to set up the Cam Ward versus Shedeur Sanders Week 14 matchup that a lot of people are going to be tuned in to watch. Cam Ward should have a really good rookie campaign for the Titans. He may not be able to get them to the playoffs, but they will be a more difficult team to beat this year with him than what they were last year with Will Levis turning the football over willy-nilly. This Cam Ward versus Shedeur Sanders game is going to be one of the more intriguing matchups of this season. Yeah, the Titans and the Browns aren't big brands. They don't really draw a lot of viewership. Everybody's going to be tuned in to watch this game. Either you're going to be watching because you love or you hate Shedeur, or you're going to be watching because you want to see both of college football's 2 best quarterbacks from 2024 squaring off in the NFL. And the last time we will have a rookie quarterback matchup of this level of excitement, if Shedeur is to start and playing this game Week 14 against Cam Ward, goes back to a few years ago, 2015, I believe it was, when Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston matched off against each other to kick off the season. That was a really good game. I believe Jameis Winston started that one off with the interception. It was a pick six. And after that, the Buccaneers just routed Tennessee from that point on. That's the last time I can recall a rookie quarterback matchup that had this much aura as what Cam Ward and Shedeur are going to have. The Michael Penix and Jaden Daniels Sunday night game also, was really good and had a lot of intrigue. But this game is just going to hold the cake because, Cam Ward is a really electric player. I don't see him struggling under Brian Callahan. I feel he'll have as good as a rookie season as what we saw Justin Herbert have, despite not having a good supporting cast around him. When you have quarterbacks that have started for as many games as what Cam Ward has throughout his college career, from FCS, Washington State to Miami, they normally end up hitting the ground up and running. And Shedeur Sanders, I expect the same out of him. He has started a good amount of games during his collegiate career. So this Week 14 matchup between the Browns and the Titans, the NFL intentionally scheduled this game at this point during the season because they know this is when the Browns are going to pull the trigger and they're going to throw out Shedeur Sanders.